Hey, listener, thanks for joining us. It's Sunday the 14th of April, and we're here in the Totally Football Show studio with Tim Spiers. Hello, Tim.
Hi, James.
All right, Adrian Clarke's with us as well. Hi, Adrian.
Hello. You all right?
Sounding chipper, Adrian.
I've had better Sundays.
Appearing Oz-like, meanwhile, on the big screen, it's Daniel Storey. All right, Daniel.
Hello, James.
Yeah, you're fresh back from Anfield.
Yeah, I've been to Anfield Thursday and Sunday, and on both times I got there and thought, this is a slightly regulation. Why am I really here? And then, yeah, everything happened.
Everything. Today it was Crystal Palace again, ending some Liverpool title hopes. Adrian, meantime, you were at the Emirates.
I was, yeah. Decent first half. Bad second half from Arsenal's point of view.
Good from Villas, though, eh? Good from Villas. Yeah. And Tim, what have you been doing? Beavering away on a very big exclusive, which we can't reveal about, but it's going to drop on Tuesday. It's big, isn't it?
Well, it's good fun, yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's for readers of The Athletic. You know, which all right-thinking people are, I think. Should we check on the results? Top three, Liverpool beaten 1-0 by Palace at Anfield early Sunday. Later that day, Arsenal beaten 2-0 by Villa at the Emirates. All this to a soundtrack of purrs from Pep and his City players who'd done their business, of course, the day before, beating Luton 5-1. Should they get the cigars out? We'll discuss that shortly. Elsewhere, though, Saturday saw Newcastle doing Spurs 4-0, moving past Ten Hag's Manchester United, who were a little bit lucky to squeak a 2-2 draw at Bournemouth. Down at the bottom, Brentford's 2-0 win over Sheffield United moved them 7 points off the drop and leaves the Blades now 10 points from safety, while Burnley's blundertastic 1-1 draw with Brighton keeps them 6 from staying up. Forest also drew 2-2 with Wolves. They are now a point clear of Luton and the bottom three. Sunday's not on the telly game was West Ham 0, Fulham 2, and Monday it's going to be Chelsea-Everton. We're going to start with the title shenanigans. Eberechi Eze with the goal that did for the pool. There you go. Arsenal and Liverpool losing, City winning. My question was, with Man City now 2 points clear of the Gunners and Klopp's side, is it time, Tim Spiers, for Pep to get the scars out?
It's, it's really weird. Sort of logic dictates no's. Just the gap is 2 points. You know, they've got difficult games, Spurs away, Brighton away. They've got FA Cup semi-final next week. You know, Aston and Liverpool both play twice, I think, before City play again. They can put the pressure back on. But then the logic of the last few years says that, yeah, that's it, it's over. And Arsenal had to win every game to push City right to the end. So, yeah, it's amazing how quickly the mood changes, right? I mean, Arsenal haven't been behind in a game this year. This is their 12th game this year. They haven't been behind. And yet, you know, it felt extremely sombre at the Emirates at the end. Fans leaving in their droves in 7 minutes of stoppage time, thinking that's it. It's all over. Because this City machine.
Look at Adrian's face. Look at his face.
Look at that
Stop
face.
it. Just stop it. A lot of people around me said, well, that's it, done and dusted. That's the mood. But I agree with Tim. I think that it isn't, we can't crown them champions yet. I think everyone said that Manchester City have this easy run in. I don't think it's that easy. Spurs away is a bad fixture for them historically, although if they encounter the Tottenham that I saw yesterday, that's an easy game. Brighton away, you don't know. Brighton have a capability. No, this season's Brighton are nowhere near last season's, but it could be awkward. Fulham away, you don't know what you're going to get with Fulham. They've just battered West Ham. I saw them destroy Spurs. They beat Arsenal, didn't they? So I'm clutching at straws here, and obviously the mighty Forest. You know, Daniel Storey. Yeah. They can raise their game against anyone.
There you go. That's the thing about twists and turns, Adrian. Right. You never know when they're going to come.
Exactly.
We had some today. We could have further ones down the road.
I think so. And Wolves have already beaten Man City this season, and they've still got to play them again. Well, come on, Adrian. That's your cue to say yes.
I'm not so sure about that. Okay. No, I think that Arsenal have to dust themselves down, as do Liverpool, and just win every game possible, because I actually think this time around City could drop some points.
All right. Daniel, not sure what you think about the chances of Liverpool winning every game possible is after the last two performances from them that you were there for. Atalanta on Thursday and Sunday against Crystal Palace. Which was worse?
I think this was worse because there was a sense, probably an unfounded sense, in the Atalanta game that changes had been made, that even after losing it as heavily as they did, that there was an ability to go and win the Premier League title and then say, well, everyone's forgotten about Europe now. I did think in the driving up this morning, I did think Oliver Glasner would have watched that game and thought, well, I don't need to do a team talk because that's the type of football he wants to play. He wants to turn the ball over high at the pitch. He wants to get attacking midfielders on the ball. It was only the 5th time this season that Michael Olise and Eberechi Eze have started together, and the first time under him, and they were as good as Atalanta were at pressing a very creaking Liverpool defence and a non-existent midfield. In the first half, they played like I've watched Manchester United play recently. The ball didn't stick up top. There was no midfield. There was no passing lanes. Alexis McAllister was kind of holding out his arms as if to say, where's my next pass coming from other than back to Virgil van Dijk? And yeah, they looked terrible. I described them in my piece as a kind of reverse Jenga, in that the more key players you seem to bring back into the team, the less structurally sound the tower is.
Is there anything we have to put the things back on?
Buckaroo, I suppose. Trent Alexander-Arnold is the kind of knapsack you put on the donkey's back.
Oh. Anyway, Crystal Palace, though, what child's game would you compare them to?
They were a kind of hungry hippos frenzy first half, I'd say.
Yeah,
Choice.
But fantastic performance. We had Eze, as mentioned, putting them ahead after 14 minutes. So Liverpool doing their traditional slow start to proceedings. And then they almost went 2 up when Van Dijk did a kind of Steven Gerrard slip.
Yeah, he did. And Jean-Philippe Mateta was and is brilliant at certain things. I don't think one-on-ones are those things. He looked a little bit kind of freaked out that he'd managed to outpace Virgil van Dijk because Van Dijk fell over and sort of skewed his little chip shot that Robertson got back. But there were a number of moments where we've watched Liverpool in recent years under Klopp, and there's various moments where they suffer adversity, and you can kind of tell that everybody realises at the same time, right, that's the thing that's going to be getting us going. And they faced about 5 of those in the first half, and never did it get them going. It just gave Crystal Palace more impetus. Eze was magnificent. Elise was great. He could only do 60 minutes. The biggest shout, the man of the match, was Nathaniel Clyne, who had a rotten time at Liverpool with injury. I think he probably feared his elite career was over. But he played in a back 3, he played at centre-back. An astounding block in the second half. Slightly lucky, but he made his own luck. And he was the best player on the pitch. Dean Henderson was brilliant in goal. Yeah, this was the kind of Glasner blueprint performance. It's their first away win under Glasner, and it's come at Anfield.
Yeah, what makes this even more remarkable is that it wasn't just Nathaniel Clyne that was in this makeshift back 3. Also Jefferson Lerma. How did he play on the left-hand side?
Yeah, they were all brilliant. I mean, we should say Liverpool were absolutely dire in the final third. They made significant changes throughout the game to try and shift things. Nothing did. Mohamed Salah looked like a ghost, quite frankly. And he has done, with the odd exception since coming back from AFCON. Darwin Núñez had one of those games where the cop just sort of groans 13 or 14 times as the ball bounces off him. He has this tendency to hit goalkeepers with shots from close range. He did that again. Cody Gakpo was probably the best player in that front 3, but yeah, they were all poor. Curtis Jones was poor coming on. The midfield just had nothing. Alexis McAllister was left as a kind of loss, and then in the second half, the last 20 minutes, I think I counted 4 shots from sort of 30 yards out that all went over from players who shouldn't be shooting from 30 yards out, and that summed it up. They just looked desperate.
TV coverage kept running out the stats about the number of goals that Liverpool have scored late on in games. Duncan Alexander pointing out that smashing the points won from losing positions metric is not the best basis for a title bid. So was this always, do you think, out there? And it's just been masked by those remarkable comebacks?
It's sort of, but I remember talking about their leaky defence a few weeks ago, saying that they were massively overperforming their sort of figures on that front. You know, Arsenal have got the best defence, or had the best, well, will still have the best defence in the league. By a margin, Man City second, and Liverpool sort of a distant third. Certainly on sort of XG against, it's 38, and they've conceded 31. So that's an overperformance of 7 goals. And in recent weeks, they've had to come from behind against Brighton, against Luton. Sheffield United pushed them late at home. Even Burnley pushed them, into the second half. All that energy they've expended deep into games, they've not been able to play games out easily and control the ball in the second half. It's sort of caught up with them.
Yeah, I agree. I think these slow starts have really caught up on Liverpool. I think at Anfield, 4 of the last 5 games have conceded first. Chasing tires you out. It just does, because it's a mental effort to really drag yourself back in the game. They haven't really had many moments in games where they could coast Liverpool and cruise to victories. And I think sooner or later that comes back to bite you. Arsenal had it last season to a degree when it was a wild ride, but they eventually ran out of gas. And you feel that this week, that's what's happened to Liverpool.
It's an arduous schedule, but because it was Klopp's final games in charge, and because there were still multiple things to fight for, everybody's expectation was that he and the team were going to be lifted by that. Instead, we've seen last week the draw with Man United, the FA Cup one before the Atalanta game. Big game, key game after key game in which they failed to perform.
But they've not been the perfect side all season, have they? They're brilliant in moments, and they score so many goals, and they've been inspired. But they've had these flaws throughout the season. Tim's rattled off some of the stats. You know, they face a lot of shots, and yeah, I think this was coming this week. Maybe this result. Palace are very good when they've got Eze and Elise carrying the ball upfield on the counter, and yeah, they're always going to be awkward, I think, for them today. And yeah, kudos to them for being so resilient, because it's not as if Palace have a great away record this season. It's first away win since November. So yeah, they'll be thrilled.
Is that it for Liverpool? Is there anything left for them to play for?
I remember we kind of said in sort of after the Klopp announcement and sort of coming into the 3-4 month run-in, that emotion was going to define their season. Daniel made a really good point a few weeks ago that yeah, they had some difficult games towards the end of the season, but this sort of emotional heft of it all should see them through. But when those emotions start to turn, and you could really feel, Daniel will know better because he was there, but you could feel the frustration and the impatience. You know, when those emotions turn, how do you can't just flick them back on again.
No, and the players have not channeled that emotion in any way. The passing was really poor second half, but as Adrian says, Crystal Palace are not great away from home, and as soon as Elise went off, they kind of lost that counter-attacking threat. So Liverpool had all the ball and had all the chances, but they were so rushed for a team that's been here and won a Premier League title recently and finished a point behind Manchester City and got nearly 100 points. They were so rushed and panicky that they didn't really create, other than Darwin Núñez's one shot that he should have scored with that hit Dean Henderson with about 15 minutes to go. They didn't really create chances. Chances kind of happened by force of pressure, but they didn't really create them. They just panicked. And as I say, towards the end of the game, they had Szoboszlai and McAllister on the pitch, who were their first choice central midfielders. They had Robertson and Alexander-Arnold, Konate, Van Dijk and Alisson, which is their first choice back five, and they had all the strikers fit, so they did what they could want with that. Jota was on the pitch, and yet nothing seemed to change. I kind of thought that when those key players came back, Liverpool would find that muscle memory for this type of match, and for some reason the opposites happened.
Well, Klopp was talking about them losing conviction after what happened to them Thursday night against Atalanta, that really shook them. They got the jitters or something. All right, well, that's Liverpool. We'll see how they bounce back from that when they travel to Bergamo this Thursday. Maybe, 3-0 down halfway through a big European tie with an Italian side. Who else but Liverpool? Or if not Liverpool, then who? But let's now get on to Arsenal, Adrian. And first of all, equally, Villa, because they were playing on Thursday night. They had less time to prepare. They were without their first choice central midfield pairing. And yet,
Aston Villa fans should be incredibly proud of that performance, and I think they will be on cloud nine for the rest of this week. It was a remarkable second half display from them, because Villa were outplayed in the first half. Arsenal were all over them, created loads of chances. They got into the box every couple of minutes. They were clinging on, but they regrouped, and Unai Emery, to his credit, was kept calm, and he blocked off all the spaces that Ødegaard had wreaked havoc in the first 45 minutes. He played a little bit more pragmatically. He dropped the line back a little bit deeper, because Arsenal, I don't know if you saw this, Kai Havertz made 4 runs from central midfield untracked for 1v1s. He just didn't have the pace to get through. He had one of them turned into a shot. Again, they learned from that in the second half. And then the longer the game went on, a little bit maybe like Liverpool, Arsenal were flustered, and the crowd, got edgy, and Villa grew in confidence, and they deservedly won the second half 2-0. Aston Villa, they also hit the post, the inside of the post. They also hit the bar and the post in one shot from Yuri Tielemans. This could have been even worse. So,
Right.
yeah, there's a feeling of deflation around Arsenal.
Especially the way the game had begun, or the build-up to the game, having seen Liverpool lost. Arsenal already a point clear of Man City with a real chance to take hold of the title race.
Yeah, there were roars around the concourses ahead of kick-off. I was filming a live show and I didn't know what was going on, but I'd assumed that something positive had happened. And we got news in the build-up to the game that Liverpool had lost, and there was big cheers in the studio. And you think, well, the players have got to be boosted by that, but maybe it added more pressure. I don't know. I could not fault Arsenal's first half performance apart from the finish. Leandro Trossard had the best chance, should have scored it, but it's a brilliant save from Emi Martinez with his legs. And then, as good as they were in the first half, they were terrible in the second, and it deteriorated. And Mikel Arteta's subs had no impact at all. Mikel himself, I would say, was unable to influence the game. He could obviously see that Villa had changed things and that they were finding it harder to break through, but he couldn't get a tune out of the players on the pitch in that second half. It was demoralising, I've got to say, and way below the standards you need to beat Manchester City over the season. So, yeah, poor.
Arsenal supporters looking for a late goal to turn it around, but instead it was Villa who struck twice in quick succession with substitute Liam Bailey, and then Ollie Watkins with a brilliant bit of play.
What a finish. But again, it's Arsenal's game management. A point is okay.
Do you think?
No. A point is better than one, obviously. A point is better than none.
But at that point, 0-0, Liverpool have lost. You've got to, and you know that Man City have won.
But
you've got to go for it, surely.
But going for it doesn't mean you have William Saliba and Gabriel 20 yards inside the opposition half with Emile Smith-Rowe, your last man back. And it's a really simple through ball over the top. He runs away from Emile, and the finish is exquisite, you've got to say. So well done to him. Well done to Aston Villa. I think that Unai Emery has got his own back on Arsenal. I think that's fair to say. He knocked them out, of course, of the Europa League a few years ago with Villarreal.
Yeah.
0-0 draw at Emirates Stadium, where Arsenal had not a sniff all night. And in that second half, Arsenal, that second half could have lasted 70, 80 minutes and Arsenal wouldn't have scored, So I think Unai Emery, it was a great day for him.
Villa doing the double this season over Arsenal without conceding a single goal, as you yourself pointed out.
Don't rub it in, James.
Yeah. You'll be having a fun edition of the Handbrake Off, the
Yeah,
Arsenal podcast.
I actually can't make it
Can you not?
tomorrow, so I've dodged a bullet, as they say.
Yeah. All right. Meantime, Man City were 5-1 winners over Luton. Luton held out for 65 seconds before conceding the first, as City romped to a big scoreline and their first win of this campaign without Rodri in their lineup. He had complained of fatigue and was rested. City had 37 shots. They had a second goal in 2 matches from Josko Gvardiol, who'd been about 400 days without scoring prior to the one that he got midweek against Real Madrid. They even got a goal from Honest Toiling's Erling Haaland. It was from the penalty spot, and he also got an assist as well. Although it was, I think, the funniest assist of the season. He was having a shot which would have gone out for a throw-in, and it bounced off some hapless Luton player's face and into the goal. Anyway, City make it 41 games unbeaten at the Etihad in all competitions, which is quite an important stat because they've got a very big game coming up there this Wednesday when they will be welcoming Real Madrid for the return leg of that Champions League quarterfinals. Real Madrid this weekend, 1-0 winners against Mallorca. There you go. Elsewhere in the European midweek, Arsenal will be travelling to Munich after the 2-2 draw with FC Bayern. Adrian?
Yeah, and I feel it's a game Arsenal can prevail in. It's going to be tough. They have to play a lot better than they did today. It's a big game because if Arsenal go out of the Champions League, that's another punch in the stomach, isn't it? And it might be too much. That might be the knockout blow that sort of derails any chance of them landing the title. Go to the Allianz and win. qualify for the semi-finals, all of a sudden you're feeling better about yourself. You never know. So I think this is a colossal game for the Gunners, and I expect them to be much, much better. I think they need to play in a much more controlled manner. When Arsenal were winning games prior to the last couple of weeks, they were giving opponents zilch, absolutely nothing. And then we saw, didn't we? We saw Bayern Munich create chances on the counter. They hit the post. They scored a couple of goals from mistakes. Today it was the same. They have to get back to completely controlling games. They've gone away from it. Central midfield, I think, needs to up its game.
Okay, well, that's on Wednesday. On Thursday, you've got potentially the final European game of the Klopp era as Atalanta host Liverpool. Will he play the kids in that, or does it become extra important now?
I'd say it's the same situation as Arsenal. Can you imagine? Can you imagine how much that might galvanise the team?
That's the most important game left to them now.
Yeah, if they turn it around, they win 4-0 there, or somehow get through. They're up, aren't they?
I think we've seen the importance this week of, a deflating result in Europe can have a direct impact on how you go into the next one. I think that's logical. And then after the Atalanta game, they've got 3 away games in a week: Sunday, Wednesday to Saturday. Fulham, Everton and West Ham. And also we've seen, fatigue's playing a massive part in this title race. When even Rodri's saying, I need a rest, you've got to stop and think that everyone's knackered here, right? But when you're winning, you're far less tired than when you're losing. I think we saw today, Liverpool just looked visibly tired when they were losing today. If they were winning 1-0, we wouldn't have said that.
You do, yeah. When you just don't feel it. And the longer it went 0-0, the more tired and lethargic Arsenal got. The mental side of it is incredible.
Villa will be all pumped up after their trip to the Emirates today. We'll be in Lille on Thursday. Villa 2-1 up from the first leg. Lille didn't play this weekend. They've been given the weekend off. And West Ham Thursday are going to be at home to Bayer Leverkusen. Bayer Leverkusen on Sunday, finally picking up their first ever Bundesliga title. Extraordinary scenes as they race to a 5-0 win over Werder Bremen to seal the Deutsche Meister thing. And of course, that now makes it 43 games unbeaten in all competitions for Xabi Alonso's side. Absolutely extraordinary. Match number 44 will be their visit to the London Stadium on Thursday. They're 2-0 up from the first leg. West Ham, meanwhile, while Bayer were busy winning the title, this Sunday beaten at home 2-0 by Fulham. Adrian, a number.
18 shots from Fulham, 10 shots on target. I mean, it's the XG battle, for what it's worth. 0.93 for West Ham, 3.29 for Fulham. So the defending was very ragged from West Ham United. And Fulham, look, when Fulham are on it, and when they're countering at speed, they're a dangerous opponent for anybody. And it looks like they deserve that win.
Okay, West Ham have only won 2 of their home games in 2024. How many have they had? 10. 2 wins in 10. Crikey. Oh, by the way, if you're Spurs, you might be concerned about what's happening with the UEFA coefficient with all those Thursday night results we were just talking about. We'll get on to maybe that and what Spurs themselves did this weekend next. Listen, I think we're back to calling it a race for the top 4. A lot of excitement over the notion that Premier League might be boasting 5 teams in the Champions League next season. Recent results in Europe have not done them too much favours in that regard. Thursday, indeed, leaving the Premier League behind the Bundesliga again by a fraction. But we'll see what English sides can do about that this week. Anyway, as it stands, Spurs now lying 3 points behind Aston Villa, but with a game in hand, but with a bit of a blow to their morale, Tottenham, after what happened to them Saturday lunchtime away in Newcastle. Adrian, you were on the mic for this game, for radio.
I was, yeah, and Newcastle were brilliant, first and foremost. I have to say that.
So they had 27% possession and a 4-0 win.
Yeah.
How?
Well, it didn't feel as if they had 27% of possession, because every time they had the ball, they were remarkably dangerous. Tottenham Hotspur were naive, and I would question their attitude, actually. I know that Ange Postecoglou will not want to do that publicly, but for me, they look like a team that didn't want to be there.
Ooh.
Yeah, which I think is as damning as you can get.
Where, in what did you see that manifest?
In the way that Newcastle got in their faces when they had the ball and they pressed the living daylights out of them. And I just didn't see any real desire or robustness on Tottenham's part to handle it. They wilted, in the face of really hostile play from Newcastle United, who could have had a lot more, even though they had so little of the ball. They created some brilliant chances. I'll give you an example on corners. They eventually scored from a corner. Newcastle had double-figure corners. I would say on almost every corner that beat the first man, Newcastle got the first head to the ball. There was no desire from a Spurs player to go and win something, to defend properly. It was, I would say, a really worrying performance from them. I just feel that the tactical approach from Ange is great against the weaker teams because talent can help them prevail. But when you come up against the good teams that can press, they do leave themselves very, very open.
Daniel, what about the tactical approach from Eddie Howe, who's Newcastle and now got back-to-back clean sheets and have now scored more Premier League goals this season than Keegan's madcap entertainers did in the whole of 95-96. Duncan Alexander pointed that one out.
Yeah, I mean, it's down to Alexander Isak and Anthony Gordon, who are a fairly bizarre partnership, but they are a partnership because Isak has played out from the left before and he's now ostensibly playing in the centre, and Gordon has played as a false nine when they had injuries but ostensibly plays out on the left. And the way that they are able to, with and without the ball, when they're pressing and when they've got possession, when they're winning it high up the pitch, their ability to run and to make different runs at the same time but both offering a pass to whichever midfielder gets it, and it's normally Bruno or Joe Linton, it just creates this dual threat that teams, including Tottenham here, are just unable to stop. And Isak's finishing is absolute. I don't think this season I've seen a better finisher. Maybe Ollie Watkins in the Premier League, although he does get chances that he misses. Isak is absolutely lethal. It's a surprise when he misses a chance. And he has that kind of, his party trick is that kind of curled shot from the left-hand side of the box. And that's what Gordon does as well. He drives and he creates those opportunities because they are such a good partnership in the Premier League.
Can I just read you a team, in fact, of Newcastle players? And we've got Nick Pope in goal. This is in formation order. Back four of Trippier, Botman, Lascelles and Target. Ooh. A midfield of Joe Willock, Tonali, Joe Linton and Lewis Miley. And a front two of Almiron and Wilson, all absent on Saturday.
Extraordinary.
It is. Elliot Anderson deserves a mention. Not somebody that gets a lot of airtime, but he came in and he covered every blade of grass. He was brilliant on the day. I thought it was a stunning Newcastle performance. And 4-0 did not flatter them.
What you were saying earlier about Spurs just being nowhere, I mean, Postecoglou did say afterwards, nowhere near it in terms of physicality, the technical side, the tactical side, tempo or intensity. He says it's just part of their growth, and sometimes that growth is painful. But
we're getting a lot of these performances of late, though. The Fulham match the other day.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I guess maybe similar with Liverpool. The more players they get back, the more problems they have. But also, Maddison was such a key part of what they did in the first half of the season. He's nowhere near it at the moment.
And lucky to have remained on the pitch in the last two matches.
Yeah, which perhaps hints at the frustration that he's feeling.
Yeah, I would ordinarily say, is it fatigue? But Spurs have had far fewer matches than the majority of other sides in the Premier League. Yeah, it's... it was a strange performance, and I worked on the game at Fulham as well, where it wasn't much better. So they have to be a lot more resilient, I think, Tottenham, especially away from home.
All right, if the Premier League season had begun in November, Adrian, they'd be below Man United and Bournemouth. Below Bournemouth and Man United, who, as it happens, face each other this Saturday. With the Cherries unlucky to only get a point, would you say, Daniel?
Yeah, as is the standard against Manchester United if you only draw. They had 20 shots, so the average for Man United shots conceding is coming down. But they have now this weekend become the Premier League team to have faced the most shots because Sheffield United only faced 9 at Brentford. And that is, for the first time this weekend, we heard a player in Diogo Dalot sort of say, maybe this is a problem. Because when you speak to Ten Hag about it, he says, it's the process. We don't concede that many goals, so I don't mind conceding shots, and that's there's some logic in that. But they've now conceded 12 in the last 5 games, and what everyone was saying is, well, yeah, but the process is wrong, so eventually the goals will catch up with the shots, and that's starting to happen now. Again, Bournemouth missed very presentable chances, but the ease at which Dominic Solanke and Justin Kluivert basically score the same goal without, and we saw it from the corner last week where players just sort of pointed at areas and said, well, who's doing this? Dalot did it for the goal, and I'm not surprised it was him that came out after the game and said as much, because he looked like he didn't know how he was meant to defend Justin Kluivert, and he's an international right back, so he should know how to defend Justin Kluivert. So that has to be a problem in system, to allow direct runners to create chances and to take shots. And yeah, they were lucky. Bruno Fernandes obviously scored a good finish, albeit kind of deflected back to him, and then the penalty incident is, I think it probably is a penalty by the laws, but you're lucky if you get one of those to save your skin every game. So, yeah, I think they go from bad to calamitous to worse, and it doesn't look rectifiable at the moment. We don't need to carry on about talking about Ten Hag for long, because we've done it, because it's the same every week. But yeah, Bournemouth 20 shots and very unfortunate not to score at least 3 goals.
Well, there's just to note the latest beef between Ten Hag and a player. He sort of picked out Garnacho after the game because he took him off at half time, and Garnacho giving Dalot no protection whatsoever, to be fair. And Dalot next to Willy Camboala, the most inexperienced player in the United squad, next to him. You'd think maybe they could do with a bit more help, but Garnacho didn't really bother with that, taken off at half time. And Ten Hag sort of dug him out afterwards and said, there was no cooperation there and they needed someone to plug that gap. And then there's Garnacho liking tweets on Twitter saying that he shouldn't have been taken off and all this kind of stuff. It's just ridiculous. They keep doing this, United players, this sort of passive aggressive sort of, I'm going to like tweets, or Amad Diallo put a zip face emoji on Instagram last night. It's just quite pathetic.
Do you know what we need to do? We need to stop calling Manchester United a team, this Manchester United team, because they're not a team. It's Erik Ten Hag's collection of individuals. That's what it is. And a manager's job is to create a culture and environment where everybody pulls together as a team.
Right. Kind of job that Iraola's done at Bournemouth, eh?
Yeah, absolutely that. It was. They are a shambles. They're the worst.
That was my attempt to get it off Man United.
Yeah, no, I want to go again.
You'll have plenty of chances, Adrian.
Yeah, this is
long.
true. They were
Perhaps
very lucky.
after next weekend when they take on Coventry in the FA Cup semi-final at Wembley, who would rule out the Sky Blues getting the result there. Just to mention that United have had 1 victory in 7, and now in danger of finishing below 7th, where they currently reside, for the first time in their Premier League history. Ooh.
Well, see, Ten Hag was asked about that.
Oh, yeah.
He was, in his defence, he was, and you see this a lot, he was leaving the press conference. It was kind of last question, I'm getting up. But he did stop to hear the question and then decided that, that wasn't for him. Also, this weekend was notable for sort of a new strain of punditry where, a couple of weeks after Haaland was called a League Two player, this time Jamie Redknapp said Casemiro was soccer aid.
Right, soccer.
Where's this going? Yeah,
I love that because it's both incredibly hyperbolic and harsh, and yet completely fitting description in the same breath.
Genius from Jamie Redknapp, eh? Unbelievable.
All right, next up, we're going to get on to what's going on down the bottom of the Premier League and 1 or 2 other stories as well. See you after this. Drama in the Scottish Premiership this weekend. Rangers beaten 3-2 by relegation strugglers Ross County. Celtic are now 4 points clear, although Rangers still have a game in hand. Crikey. Elsewhere this weekend, drama as well in the Women's FA Cup semi-finals. Daniel.
Yes, we already knew we'd have a new finalist because Tottenham were playing Leicester and Tottenham beat Leicester 2-1. But this week, Mark Skinner is rumoured to be getting a new deal as Manchester United manager, and there's a sort of slight bit of humming about that. But his Manchester United beat Chelsea in the other semi-final 2-1, which is a landmark result for them.
Is Emma Hayes doing a bit of a Jurgen Klopp?
You know what, maybe, although they are still in the Champions League, so that's the big one for them. This is a very poor result, and Chelsea beat Manchester United in the final last year, so they get the chance to go, and then they'll be heavy favourites to beat Tottenham in the final, and that will probably be the the achievement that gets Mark Skinner his new deal, a tremendous result in that semi-final.
Fantastic. Full-time Europe, the Athletics Women's Football Podcast will, of course, be reacting to the FA Cup semi-finals when it drops on Tuesday. Meantime, also having tremendous results this weekend were Stockport and Wrexham, who've both been promoted to League One. Back-to-back promotions. Adrian, extraordinary.
Yeah, they're a real force of nature, particularly at the racecourse ground this season. They've got a big budget. They've got very, very experienced players. Mullin and McLean, Stephen Fletcher. They've got so many options. But League One is a big old step up, so I expect them to invest quite heavily. And it'll be fascinating to see if they change their style of football, because the manager, Phil Parkinson, is very direct. It's kind of archetypal lower league football. It's percentages, it's long throws, set pieces, play the channels, and I think in League One to get promoted to the Championship might need a little bit more than that. So and the owners themselves might look to bring in a different style of football. Yeah, whoever the owners are, I'm not sure I've heard of them.
Stockport though, is that a bit more heartwarming as stories go?
It's
Yes.
just
Daniel?
Go on, Dan. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. They have done tremendously well to get promoted. They are a very strong team in that league. They were the pre-season favourites to go up, but they actually started really slowly. But Dave Challoner they had a big budget in the National League, not quite nowhere near Wrexham's budget this season. And Dave Challoner went there, took a chance going there when they were in non-league. Any double promotion is a fine effort, and yeah, there's just a real big feel-good move about Stockport. They have, they've been in administration. I think 2009ish they went into administration, so they have gone through the mill, and yeah, I'm really glad to see them go up.
Brilliant. Okay. It's all still to play for in the Championship, where the top three were separated by just a point heading into the weekend, much like the Premier League. And top three in the Championship proceeded to take just 1 point between them. So that's wide open. Adrian, amongst your many duties this week will be an addition, I hope, after your handbrake off bombshell earlier. Are you going to turn up for what, the EFL?
I'll
podcast?
show up on Wednesday for that.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be good. No one wants to go up automatically in the Championship. That much is clear. Southampton, who thought they were coasting towards the playoffs with no real pressure in their games, are suddenly right back in it, which is exciting.
That is exciting. Okay, Adrian, it's increasingly likely you'll be talking about Sheffield United and Burnley in what, the EFL next season after events this weekend. What a blow for the Clarets at Turf Moor. Last weekend, of course, they'd had that goalkeeping howler at Goodison that cost them 2 points. This time, Tim, for once it seemed luck was finally going Burnley's way. This time it was the opposition keeper, the Brighton fella, checks notes, Bart Verbruggen, who slammed a kick into an oncoming player, and Burnley were up. And 15 minutes to go. They're getting a win. They're going to be 3 points from safety. No. Step forward. Arianet Muric boldly calling for a custodian for his hot-based beverage. And one of the worst goalkeeping mistakes of any season, I'd
Yeah, of any
suggest.
season, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty rare these at the top level.
Break it down for us, Tim.
Just lets a pass back roll under his foot. Or he sort of tries to poke it.
Enkelman-esque, wasn't it?
He tries to trap. Yeah, Enkelman.
Tries to trap it,
Paul
yeah.
Robinson tries to trap it under his foot and straight in.
Wasn't Paul Robinson a bobble, though? Wasn't that a...
That was a bobble.
Yeah.
I think Enkelman let it go under his foot. This one for me was worse because he could have controlled it with his side foot, which is obviously the easy way to control a ball. But he's gone cocky and tried to sort of control it on the studs.
Well, that's what Brighton do. That's the way that they control it and push it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Was this a good time to be getting cocky, do you think, Daniel?
I mean, I sort of feel for Vincent Kompany because he didn't want to change James Trafford initially. He'd spent 90 million quid on a young goalkeeper, but he eventually took him out the firing line, and Burnley fans were championing Muric, who was brilliant in the promotion season last year. So they said, we've got to give him a go. Played really well against Brentford in his first game. They win that game, and you think, well, fine, they've got it sorted. And then, as you say, consecutive weeks. What do you do now? Because you kind of have to keep picking Muric because James Trafford's confidence must be on the floor. But then if you don't change it and he makes another mistake next week, you look like an idiot for not changing it. I mean, yeah, who'd be a manager? Because yeah,
He's cost them 5 points in what, 8 days? With those 5 points, it's pointless. But they'd only be 1 point from safety.
Costly, no doubt about it. But yeah, it's absolute classic from Craig Bellamy saying, "Yeah, it's not his fault." It kind of is, Craig. Yeah.
Hands up, who had Craig Bellamy talking about rainbows and unicorns this weekend? not I. Craig saying, "I have a 3-year-old girl who still believes in rainbows and unicorns. I honestly think we're going to get out of this situation. I believe we're going to stay up. Maybe I am the one who believes."
The issue there is that they don't exist, isn't it? That's his problem with that analogy.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Alrighty. Seagulls, by the way, have won just 4 of their last 17 Premier League matches. Brighton, who, are one of the tough fixtures awaiting Man City in this run-in. Elsewhere, Brentford beat Sheffield United 2-0. It was a must-win game for the Bees, and they did, picking up their first victory in the process in 10 matches. For Sheffield United, it really does look over for them. Awaiting them in the Championship, the lovely welcome of a 2-point deduction, Adrian.
Yeah, they deserve it, don't they? Because they haven't coughed up the payments to other clubs in time, and that's whichever way you look at it, that's not right, that's not fair, and you deserve to be pulled up on it. Worrying times, I think, for Sheffield United, because the ownership have wanted out for a long, long time, and they haven't got out. So what's going to happen moving forwards? There's a lot of unknowns, I think, at Bramwell Lane, and they will return to the Championship quite a bit weaker, I think, than they were when they left it.
Yikes. They look poised to go down. Burnley look like going down with them. It's now probably between Luton and Forest, Daniel, for the remaining place. Only 1 point between them.
Yes, I think that's it. If Everton lose at Chelsea on Monday night, next weekend is huge because Luton play Brentford at home and Everton host Forest. If Forest are going to win that, and bear in mind Forest have won 3 away games since they got promoted, then I think that brings Everton back into it. But without all those caveats, my hunch is, as you say, Forest or Luton.
Crikey. Forest this weekend were at home to Wolves in a match packed with ill feeling. We've got, if you like, both sides of the story here with Nottingham's very own Daniel Storey and Tim's.
I'll be putting my fingers in my ears while Tim talks. Yeah,
and Tim from the Wolves side of things. Why was there so much needle in this game, Tim?
Yeah, this is a rivalry that sort of crept up. This isn't a traditional, it's East and West Midlands, but that's about as far as it goes. But yeah, the past couple of seasons there's been a bit of beef with Morgan Gibbs-White at the heart of it, and he was at the heart of everything at the weekend. Relations between him and Wolves supporters started to turn sour as he left the club, and since he's moved to Forest, they've been exacerbated. He after he scored at the weekend, he stuck his fingers in his ears right in front of the away end.
Bold,
very bold. There's a fantastic picture which, if you haven't seen, you can see on the Athletic on Monday morning, of a couple of hundred Wolves fans, each of whom's making a fantastic facial expression, that some of them see the funny side, but
their fingers are very much not in their ears.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And then so when Mateus Cunha equalised for Wolves, he was in front of the away end about to celebrate, and Hwang ran up and tapped him on the shoulder and reminded him to stick his fingers in his ears as well. So yeah, it's all good beef.
Right. Daniel, you can take your fingers out of your ears now. Gio Reyna make his first start for Forest. Were you happy about that? He's set up Morgan Gibbs-White.
Yeah, I mean, it was a funny transfer because he'd moved agency to George Mendes' agent, I think like 10 days or 12 days before the deal, and he's barely played a minute. But with Anthony Elanga not available, he started for the first time, and he's pretty good. He looks quite lightweight, I think, but he got the assist for Gibbs-White goal from a corner, and Forest are not just wretched from defensive corners, although they did concede from one again, obviously. They are also really bad at attacking set pieces this season. So to have Danilo and Reyna taking them is better, I think, than Gibbs-White taking them. But yeah, if Forest don't sort out those set piece issues, Nuno for the first time kind of said after the game, like, this needs to be an issue. The kind of backstory here is that Steve Cooper appointed Simon Rusk, who was England's under-19s manager, as a set piece coach early in the season, and then got sacked about 2 weeks later. And Nuno came in, and reports suggest that he's chosen not to use Rusk at all, and Forest get no better at defending set pieces. So that's going to have to change. They go to Everton next week, and Forest fans will be nightmaring about James Tarkowski all week, I'm sure, because Sean Dyche can do attacking set pieces.
Crikey. Everton, who await them next week, are still to play this round. They will be at Chelsea on Monday night. There you go. Been an interesting one.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Kevin Schade, who has had a horrible season after moving to Brentford. He was on loan last season. He cost them about 20 million quid in the summer. He was a club record at the time. And he got a really serious abductor injury, then required surgery, etc., etc. So he played his first game for, I think, 4.5 months. Came on as an 89th minute sub against Sheffield United and immediately produced this outrageous flick assist for the second goal. He's a really fun player. He's really direct. I know all the talk's been about missing Mbuemo and missing Tony this season, but they've really missed Schade as well. So it's nice to see him back on the pitch. He's only 22, so he's had a horrible first season, but hopefully on the mend.
Excellent. Very, very good. Well, that kind of wraps it up for today's show. We'll be back on kind of, as I say, late Monday, early Tuesday with our Euro show, which is particularly important this week that you listen to that because we'll be previewing all those delicately poised, and boy, are they, European ties.
Great games, yeah. I mean,
what's your?
Well, I'll be watching. I'll be watching Bayern Arsenal, but I think that City Real Madrid is a very exciting one.
Mm-hmm.
City in pole position, but Real Madrid have shown that they have the tools to hurt them. Can they do it away from the Bernabeu? That's the question. I don't know. We'll find out, won't we?
Yeah.
It's important to pick one, I think. I watched both last week for a piece for The Athletic, and it's just not a very enriching, enjoyable experience.
How did you do that, Tim?
Split screen.
But which one had the sound up?
Both.
Oh.
Yeah, both. Because you need to hear the commentators' pitch getting higher so you can see the goals going. But the internet went down at one point, so I did miss 4 goals. But when I was channel hopping, I was switching to the channel where there hadn't been a goal to see because they were showing the replays of the ones that I'd missed.
And
you got to pick one.
It sounds like you've had a mare.
Yeah.
Really.
Sounds a good piece, yeah.
Sound down on the big screen, sound up on the laptop, but mainly watching the big screen, but monitoring with ears the sound from the laptop. Or is it the other way around? I can't remember. But anyway, that's my approach. Sound up on one and watching the other.
I like to watch in silence often.
Yeah.
Just staring at a wall when Arsenal lose. I like it.
Barca PSG will be fun as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they'll all be fun. They'll all be fun. Excellent. Good. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today, listener. Many thanks to Adrian and to Tim and to Daniel. In the booth, Liam and producer Charlie and you. We do hope you'll be joining us for our shows coming up this week. And for now, from all of us here, it's goodbye. The Totally Football Show podcast is available 3 times a week, bringing you all the football news you could reasonably be expected to care about. We've got views, we've got stats, we've got analysis, we've got some of the best football writers around, and the whole thing is absolutely free. So have a listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or all the usual places by clicking on the link below.